Thank you all so much. What a delightful sight you all are. And I'm so thrilled to be here. I want to thank the Center for Fiction for organizing this event. I want to thank all of your teachers also for participating and for helping to make this happen. And I see that you have the Telltale Start in hand. How many of you have read it? Ah, beautiful. All right, I thought I'd do a couple of things. I thought I'd start out by talking a little bit about how I came to write it. And then I want to talk a little bit about writing. How many of you think you might like to write a book someday? Oh, wonderful. All right, so we're going to talk a little bit about writing, okay? And then I want to definitely leave some time for questions at the end. Do any of you have questions? Good, okay. You hang on to those questions and we'll get to them. And then afterwards, I look forward to signing all of your books. So thank you all for coming, first off. You recognize this picture? No, you've all got that. And this is a picture of Edgar and Alan and Roderick. That's right. Now, can you hear me back there? Yeah? You know, I'll just bring this over here though. So let me ask you, which one is that? What? Edgar. Right. Which one is that? Right. That's this one? Edgar. And any other? Who else is this one? Yes. Alan, that's right. Because these twins, as you know, are unusual twins. Are any of you twins? Oh, we have lots of twins here. That's fantastic. Now, are any of you twins connected like Edgar and Alan? Do you know people who are? Okay, that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. Where 1 minute one is Edgar, and the next minute it's Alan. And this, of course, is Roderick. And Roderick is a kind of unusual cat. Can anybody tell me? Yes?
He unties stuff.
He unties stuff, that's right. And not everything, he unties it on command. When he is asked, what else? Yes? Uh-huh. He can bark like a dog, that's right. Yes? That's right, he can stand as still as a statue. And that figures later on in the story of Edgar and Allan Poe, that standing still is very important. Yes? Uh-huh.
He also has a figure 8 on the side.
He has a figure 8. That's right. He's got, which you can see here. There's Roderick with his figure 8. Now, I'm going to let you in on a little secret that is not in the book. It might be in later books, but it's not in this book. So nobody who's read just the Telltale Start knows this. In fact, nobody who's read the second book even knows this. The secret, any ideas as to why he's got an 8? Why that's an 8? I'm kind of giving a secret away, and don't pass it along to anybody outside this room, please. New York Yankees. That's super cool. In some ways, that's right. He does this to kind of live forever. He said it was a kind of infinity sign, right? That's really great. That's cool. I like that a lot. So that's one answer. It's a good one. And what's another answer? Yes, I saw your hand earlier. Yeah. That was supposed to be secret. You got it so easily. She said, cats are supposed to have 9 lives. She said, maybe he's on his 8th. And I said, she's guessed my secret already. But, how many of you have heard that story that cats have 9 lives? Yeah. So Roderick has had 8 lives. Or this is his 8th life that he's living. And which means he's had 7 lives before. And I'll let you in on one other secret. Can any of you guess who one of his previous owners might have been way back in about his 6th life or 5th life? Yes, right there.
Edgar Allan Poe.
Edgar Allan Poe, you are correct. Can't get anything past you guys. You're very sharp. Very sharp group. Yes, he was once the cat of Edgar Allan Poe. Yes?
So that means the number on him changes?
Oh, that's a great question. It's true. In his last life, he lived in Paris in the 1920s. And in that life, he had what number on his chest? 7. You're right. And in his next life? No, this is, and the one after this? No. Well, you're right. Whoever said 6 is right if you see him upside down. It looks like a 6. So you are all really well acquainted with Edgar and Allan. And I'll tell you a little bit, just briefly, about how I came to write them in the first place. And then I want to talk to you all about writing, and maybe we'll make up a little story together, and then we'll come back to Edgar and Allan for questions. It was a few years back, and I had been working on a grown-up book. It was a mystery novel, and it had to do with a famous detective novelist. And that had been going pretty well for a while, but I got kind of stuck on it. Because sometimes when you're writing one thing, you kind of run out of gas. And I thought, I need to do something that is fun. And I need to create some characters where it's not all, mystery novels, like grown-up mystery novels, as some of you know, or as all of you know, they're often about kind of dark subjects. And this is a little bit dark too. But what was lacking in what I was writing was any humor. And I thought, I want to write something that's fun. I want to write something that is kind of funny. And so I didn't know where the story was going to go when I started it. And that's one of the things that is okay for all of you, and those of you who raised your hand, which is most of you, who would like to write a story or write a book one day. You don't always, sometimes you know where it's going to end. That's great. But you don't have to know where it's going to end. Sometimes you just dive in. And so I thought to myself, somehow or other the phrase Edgar and Allan Poe. We've all heard the name Edgar Allan Poe, heard it a bunch of times, but what if there was an Edgar and Allan? And what if they were twins? And okay, that's good, but then just to kind of entertain myself initially, because when you're writing, the first person you have to please is who? Yourself. That's right. Please yourself. And you certainly, in order to keep writing on a project, no matter how long or short it is, you have to keep interested in it yourself. And that's in a way, that's the most fun part, is you have to continually find ways to make it fun for yourself. Excuse me. So I was writing this sentence, and they were asleep, as you know from the start of it, and they wake up, and one had dreamed during his sleep, Edgar dreamed he was Allan, and Allan had dreamed he was Edgar. And at first I thought that they were just dreaming it. And then I thought, wait a minute, that's, what if that's the way it is, not just in a dream, but in the real world? 1 minute one is Edgar, 1 minute he's Allan. And so from that, this idea of their being interchangeable, this idea of there being kind of like it's described in the book, two boys with one mind, or one mind with two boys. And that's where that came from. And if you think about it, then so much of the plot that follows, for example, Professor Perry. Who could describe Professor Perry? Good guy or bad guy? Yes? Bad guy, yeah. Pretty much. Yeah, and what makes him bad? Mm-hmm. Oh, sorry. Yes? Uh-huh.
He wants to kill one of them.
Yeah, he wants to kill one of them. That's pretty bad. That definitely qualifies him as bad. Yes? Sure.
He wants to kill one of them so he can control the dead world.
Yes, he wants to kill one for control. That's right. Uh-huh.
So did he kidnap Roger?
He kidnaps Roderick. Uh-huh. Yep.
He assassinated a few people.
And he says, yeah, we'll stop there because he's really bad. We could keep going, it shows how bad he is. And so, the boys don't know anything about that. I'll get back to you. The boys don't know anything about that initially. What's the first problem that kind of faces them right off the bat? What really gets them moving? Yes?
They get suspended.
They get suspended. They do. And who's... And...
This guy, Ian Archer, he like get some of their hair.
Yes, he does. He yanks it out. He yanks out some of his hair. That's right. You know what I learned? I learned a lot of interesting details. So for example, testing DNA with hair, it can be done. But it turns out if you snip it, it's a little detail, if you snip the hair, you can't test the DNA because the DNA is located at the root. So originally, I had him go in and cut the hair and then test the DNA. But my editor, who's sitting right here, her name's Sharon. She's my editor at Viking who published the book. Pointed out to me, and this is one of the many, many wonderful ways in which she helped me with this book, that in fact, if you snip hair, you can't test DNA. And so that's why in the book, Ian Archer kind of yanks the boy's hair out, because he's got to have it by the root. So those little details are fun things to learn when you're writing a book. I didn't know that. How many of you knew that about DNA and hair? Some of you knew that? You are really smart. You are really smart. We'll have questions. We'll have questions. So, the other thing, so sometimes things just, if you let yourself go with your writing, if you kind of just start out by taking an idea that fascinates you, Edgar and Allan Poe, twins, set in the present, 1 minute one boy's Edgar, the next he's Allan. They're interchangeable, they're psychically linked. That was just kind of all that came out of letting my imagination go. And letting your imagination go is the most important part. In some ways, when you're first starting, getting all the details right is not as important as just letting your imagination go in order to get the story started. And I'll give you another example of something that turned out to be very important. I really thought that the boys, I wanted them to be orphans. And who can tell me who takes care of them? Their aunt and uncle, right? Uncle Jack and Aunt Judith, really good people, and they take very good care of the boys. But I still felt as though if they were orphans, it frees them up a little bit. It frees them up a little bit. Think about Harry Potter's an orphan, for example, right? But I had the problem of, now think about if you're reading the book, it's early on that you find out that their parents are gone. I don't want to bum you out. It's supposed to be a fun book. So I don't want to, come up with some real tragic way, realistic way for them to have died. So does anybody remember how the mom and dad, I'm calling somebody I haven't yet, right there. No, you, right there, you, yep, you.
So the parents would like walk the people who do like testing rockets,
Mm-hmm.
and they lost track of the countdown and they got shot into space.
Right. Accidentally shot into space. Now, how many of you have had parents who've been accidentally shot into space? No, you have not. No, I wish. Okay, I didn't ask how many of you wish your parents would be accidentally shot into space. Okay. So I thought, well, this is a great way to, because it's never happened to anybody, except that poor little girl back there. Because it's never happened to anybody, it's not going to bum you out. You know, when you read it, it's kind of funny. I mean, if there is such a thing as a funny way to die, it's kind of funny to be accidentally launched into space. And so that's why I chose that. Well, and so guess what? And later on in the story, even though I hadn't initially planned it, later on in the story, that becomes an element that does come back into the story. So it's a matter of starting with something that delights you, something that makes you laugh, or it can be sad. You could write a sad story too. For me, I wanted to write something that was fun and kind of funny. But you also might want to write something entirely different, but it appeals to you personally. And then letting your imagination go, and then what you find, and this is the kind of magic of it, you find that you plant certain seeds that grow into plants that you didn't even know existed. So I say in book 1, Mom and Dad accidentally got shot into space, and by book 3, which is the concluding book, that's a major element. And everything comes back to that. And that was all because I planted that seed not knowing what was going to grow. So, I want to talk just a little bit about how to start a story. Because sometimes that's the hardest part. You know, sometimes it's you sit down and there's if somebody asks you to write write a paragraph about Abraham Lincoln, there's a certain limited amount of information and you can write that paragraph. But if somebody says, okay, write a story, the whole world is out there. And in some ways, all of that seems so big that it's sometimes hard to get started. So, I want to talk about a simple way to get started on a story. But first I'm going to tell a little story of a sort. And then, now I so appreciate that you like Edgar and Allan Poe. So I'm going to tell this little story, and then I'm going to ask you whether you like it or not, and you can be totally honest. I want you to be totally honest, all right? So, here it is. We start with a character. There was a boy named Sam, and he lived in a house, or he lived in an apartment on 84th Street, and liked to eat at a diner around the corner. Hamburgers were his favorite dish, and often he would go there for breakfast on the weekends, and enjoyed it very much. And his sister, Sally, she also liked it. And together they would go and eat lunches, breakfast there, and sometimes even dinner. So, what do you think of my story? Yes, honestly?
Yes.
Oh, it's honest maybe, but do you like it?
I think it's a lot to tell about in the story. The beginning.
Okay, it's a beginning, but what if that was the whole thing? What if it said the end? Yes or no? Do you like it? You can all say it.
No.
You don't like, you're right. That's a terrible story. That's a terrible story. I'll get to it. Okay, you can move. That's right. All right. So that's a terrible story. Now, let's think about it for a minute. The story's got characters, Sam and Sally. It's got a setting, 84th Street and Park. It's got movement. It's got action, right? So in a way you go, well, wait a minute, why don't you like it? I've got characters, I've got a setting, I've got action. What's missing? Why don't you like it? Yes. Well, okay, details.
More than thinking about what happened, and it just telling about the way it usually goes here. There really isn't a story to it.
Right, she's right. It could have more details, but even if I added more details and said, like when he ordered his burger, he never liked pickles, you're still going to say no. But what she pointed out, it doesn't have a story. And what would make it a story? Yes.
It needs a problem.
A problem, exactly. It needs conflict of some kind, right? So if I were to say, and then one day, Sam was waiting at the diner for his sister to arrive, but when she did, another girl arrived who he'd never seen, who said, "Hi, Sam, I'm Sally." Oh, whoa. Sam said, "No, you're not." Then his mom and dad walk in and say, "Hi, Sally and Sam. How are you two doing? What are you going to have? Your usual hamburger, Sam?" Sam's mind is blown. Right? Now do we have the beginnings of a story? Because we've got a problem. We've got a conflict. Now, how that story is going to work out can go off in a million different directions. Right? What's going to happen? Is she an alien? Is mom and dad, has his family been replaced by aliens who got 2/3 of it right but missed on the daughter? Did someone put something in his hamburger to make his mind go off? What's happened here?
Food poisoning!
Possible food poisoning. It could very well be food poisoning. So in order to start your story, as you pointed out, you need details. You need a character. You need to set it someplace. You need some kind of movement, some kind of action. Even if it's just thinking. Thinking is action, right? But then often we want to get characters moving around. It's a lot of fun. But ultimately there needs to be a problem or conflict. One way of thinking about this is, I was in, this is my son right here. His name's Harlan. He's thanked in the back of the book, actually. And this is my wife, Julie. She's also thanked in the back of the book. And Sharon is thanked in the back of the book, too. And if I'd known all of you, you would have all been thanked in the back of the book. But, yeah. But I was talking to Harlan's class many years ago when he was your age. And some kids were reading tall tales that they'd written, I remember. And something really struck me. And I don't remember the details, or I don't remember who was reading, or I don't remember the details. But this is another way of thinking about this question of how to get drama, how to make it dramatic, how to make it interesting. Is that if I were to say, Sally loved riding horses, and, think of the word and she went to the, where do people ride horses? Stable, and she rented a horse there, and the horse was really nice, and they had a lot of fun riding, round and around. Again, no story, right? No story yet. But then if I said the word but, now what follows? And you all drove here this morning on a bus, and there was traffic, and you made it here in time, and you came upstairs, and it's nicely organized, and I was here on time to talk, and the speech started, but now there's a story. But then, And then fill in the blank. But whatever that but then is the thing that's going to get your story off and rolling. But then the Martians arrived. Don't worry, they're not. They're not. They're not. Actually, a few did poke their heads up the stairs, but they went back right back down, so don't worry about it. I could see. There's one, yeah, back there. So, no, the Martian's gone.
There's a Martian right there.
So, let me ask a kind of a practical question just for a minute, because then I want to play a little game. How many teachers do we have here? No, teachers. So, would the teachers raise their hands? Just the teachers. So 1, 2, 3. There's 3 classes? 4? 4? Okay. Okay, we're gonna play a little game. We're gonna play a little game, but it's got to be quiet before we can play it. Okay? And let's see. I'm gonna ask a question about the misadventures of Edgar and Allan Poe. A little trivia. Okay? You can't raise your hand yet. Oh, you haven't? Okay, that's all right. That's okay. That's no problem. All right. So here's my first question. Let's see. All right. Edgar and Allan send out a special invitation to the bullies in the neighborhood to their little Halloween party. And written on the invitation is a question that they ask the bullies. What is the question? Okay, you were the first one. Yes?
The question is, are you brave enough?
That is correct. So, this is the audiobook for book 2. So. Now, I've got audiobooks also for all of the teachers too. So.
It was, are you brave enough?
That's what he said.
I said it, are you scared?
No, he said it. He got it. He got it. And I've got audiobooks for all the teachers, so everybody in the class, whatever you want to do with them, everybody will have an opportunity. All right. When Professor Perry bases his desire to kidnap the boys and kill one of them on a theory of physics. What's that theory called? Yes, in the Arizona shirt.
That he thinks that they're special twins, so he wants one of them to go and one of them to help him.
Okay, that's right, but it's not what the theory is called, and you can look it up if you want to. Yes?
He's trying to send
Absolutely right, but I'm looking for the name. Yes? In the red sweater.
I'm pretty sure it's quantum entanglement.
Quantum entanglement. Yes, you're right. Okay. And one more. Everybody's. Hands up. All right, it's going to be somebody from this side. Because there have been two over here. And so it's good. So I'm kind of looking over here. So, and also, I'm assuming that you very, very, very great kids will share the audio with your friends.
Yeah.
So, okay. All right, I'm looking over here. Here's the question. Up there in the next world, where Mr. Poe works, sometimes writing fortune cookies, who is his boss? Whoops, right there. William Shakespeare. Okay, now I want to remind all of you that your teachers will also have book to and audio, so everybody's going to get a chance out there. And congratulations to those of you. Also, what an impressive group of kids that can just toss off answers like quantum entanglement and William Shakespeare. I'm hugely impressed. So, now I'm checking the time here, and I think that we ought to be, we have enough time to take some questions now. So, yes?
How did the mom and dad get on the spaceship? Were they like on it when they did the countdown?
Yes, the mom and dad, they worked for NASA, right? And they were up there in the, sometimes there's unmanned launches, where they launch satellites, just satellites, and then it automatically kind of opens and the satellite goes around up there. And so there's a compartment that holds the satellite. And so the mom and dad who helped to design it, they were up in that compartment and with sort of making the last minute adjustments to the satellite, and then they lost track of the time and they didn't hear the countdown, 10, 9, 8, 7. And so nobody intended to send a person up there, and it's just supposed to be a satellite, but they both went up. Yes?
Why didn't you just say that, why wasn't there an emergency button? Because likely on spaceships, that if there's an emergency, there should be a button that you can press.
Yes.
Very smart.
No, it's very good. You want me to? You know what?
The escape pod.
There's a problem. Someone very bad, I won't name who, drugged them. Stop. Keep it to yourself. And so they were unable to push that button. But it's a good question. Yes. Yes. Oh, I'm sorry. I can't hear.
I just like all books. I get really confused when I know the book. So there was this in one of after a chapter it says what the Poe twins did not know. And there was this email that said going from Professor Perry to Mr. Allen. Archer. Yeah. Archer to Professor Perry. But I thought in the beginning of the book. Yeah. Okay, wait, what page was that? 23. Okay, hold on.
Page 23?
Yeah, page 23. There was an email from Archer to Professor Perry.
Yes.
Saying, but I thought they were the same person.
Oh.
But I get it. Because in the beginning of the book, he said somebody can send their own message to it. I know, but because in the beginning of the book.
Oh no, but well, I can answer. Professor Perry and Ian Archer are two different people.
Oh.
They are.
In the beginning of the book, it said
They're emailing.
I'm Professor Perry. I think it said I'm Mr. Perry, and when he came out of the corner when they were in the principal's office, and then.
Yeah, I think he may say that he works for Professor Perry, but Ian Archer, he's a different person.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. Oh, Mr. Archer, who got he was dressed in the monkey outfit.
Yeah.
Mr. Archer went to jail because the boys, remember, they called the police at the end, and Mr. Archer went to jail, as did Professor Perry. But the difference is, Professor Perry escaped. But as of now, Mr. Archer's still in jail. Yes? Like the twins could read each other's minds? You know, sometimes the question was, where did I get the idea that the twins could read each other's minds? I think, you know, there's always been a little bit of, there's always been these kinds of stories that you hear about twins. You know, this twin in Omaha that never met a twin that lived in Miami, and somehow they do the same job. So there's always been these kinds of stories, and I just thought, well, what if I take that story and then exaggerate it by 100? You know? Yes. Uh-huh.
I kind of understand it, but I kind of don't. So when at the start, it said this is the author, and I don't. Are these people? Did this guy like turn into these two people? I don't get how these two people are more.
Oh, okay. Well, no. All right. The two boys. Yeah. So his question was kind of so their parents, Edgar and Alan's parents are the ones that were accidentally launched into space. So they were just born like regular kids. You know, they were just twins. This is their great-great-great-great-granduncle.
But they were named by their great.
And yeah, they were named after him. So everybody, so this is a family that's descended from the famous writer Edgar Allan Poe. And Poe may have visited this building, huh? He may have. How far?
Poe did actually write the original Mercantile Library. That's when it was downtown.
Okay, we're in the Mercantile Library now. Poe originally wrote in the Mercantile Library way back when. But in any case, he's their ancestor. And so that's why their parents named them after him.
Also, from the great beyond, well, I don't understand. Mr. Poe's the great beyond.
Mm-hmm.
There's all these like dark places where it says Mr. Poe and the great beyond.
Yes.
I don't understand that.
Well, in this book, that's where people go when they die. And so Mr. Poe goes up there, and Mr. Shakespeare, and some others too. But the reason they're all writers there is that they happen to be in the writing department.
He's writing the fortune cookies, like the part of the brilliant.
Right. He writes the fortune cookies, but what he doesn't understand is when the fortune cookies get transmitted down here to Earth, sometimes there are typographical errors. So, brilliant trip, brilliant trap, we have a problem here. Yes, right there.
Are the twins, are they the same age?
Yes, they're the same age.
They're twins.
They're the same age. I mean, one would be like a couple minutes older than the other, but since one minute one's Edgar, the next is Alan, they're the same age. Yes, in the green jacket.
How long did it take to make the book?
Oh, that's a really good question. It's a really good question because it took, the first book took the longest by far. Because in the first book, I was really trying to figure out, I had the idea for these twins, Edgar and Allan Poe, but then I really needed to get to know their personality. And there's a kind of they're kind of troublemakers, right?
Yeah.
They're kind of troublemakers, but they don't make trouble for their friends, and they kind of only make trouble for, generally speaking, for the bad guys. But it took me a while to find the balance in terms of how that character was going to work. And Sharon helped me, as did my wife and my son. They read drafts too. These three right here are like co-authors of this book. Yes. Right there, with flower. Well, why did I decide to write a second book? Well, it was, once I realized, and it took me a little while. For a while I thought I was, at the very beginning I thought I was just writing one book. That's what I had in mind. But then as Professor Perry's character developed, and I got to figure out that, wow, he's really pretty, he's got a really nefarious plan. Did you kids all learn what the word nefarious means from reading this book? Okay, it's a big word. It's kind of like evil and plotting and evil. But he has this, and so when I realized his plan, I realized that the boys that it couldn't all be settled in one book, and that it was going to take more, and a little bit more time and more adventures. Yes. Yes.
Are the Poe twins real?
Are the what?
Poe twins?
The Poe twins real? Well, in a way they are. I mean, we're talking about them, right? You know, we're talking about them, and we all have a certain concept of who they are. So they're not historical. You won't find records for them in the Baltimore census, but they're kind of real. Yeah, right there with the orange jacket.
Okay, when was the exact day the first book was released?
The exact day the book was released.
I'm actually looking this up right now.
Okay. It was.
I'll get back to you.
All right, she'll get back with the exact date the book was released. Somebody who has with the hat.
How old are the kids?
They're 12.
Whoa.
How old are all of you? 9 and 10? 8 and some 8-year-olds. Okay. All right, I got it. Okay, I see. You're of mixed ages. Yes, Bartman here.
Two questions.
Okay.
How many books have you released?
These are my first books for kids.
No, like on
Oh, how many Poe books are there?
Yeah.
Book 2 came out in April, which is this one. That's out in April, and it'll be out in paperback in January. And then the final book will be out in April of next year. And all right, and I cannot pass this around, but I can show you the cover, because you get to be the very first. There's no kids in the world, it's true, who have ever seen the cover. But this is a cover for book 2. It's out there, so that's not a secret. But this is book 3. It's called The Pet and the Pendulum. And I'm gonna walk. I'm not gonna pass it around, but let me walk back. No, you stand right there. Okay, so you can't buy this yet, but in April you can. Can't buy it yet, but But for those of you that can't quite make it out, it's Edgar and Allan sitting on a very sharp, knife-sharp pendulum. Very dangerous looking pendulum. Swings back and forth, and cuts and cuts and cuts. And there's a rat at one end, and Roderick at the other, looking at the rat. I don't have to tell you what he's thinking. Okay, somebody I haven't called on yet. I haven't called on you? Yes, okay.
The part where it says, on page 157, when Archer guy tells Perry, I'll tell the cops that the postman's parents is no accident, does he end up telling the police or not?
Well, he does not end up telling the police. He doesn't. He doesn't, because Professor Perry's got a lot. He pulls strings. He's a very powerful guy, but that comes later. But I will tell you that much. Okay, and again, somebody I haven't called on.
It's not about the book, but what is the first kind of book you ever made? Not just for kids, but mixed together for the adults and the kids.
Well, the first book I published or the first book I ever wrote?
The first book
Okay, I was 10. I was 10, and I still remember it vividly. And in those days, you know, there were no computers, and you don't need a computer to write a book. You need a piece of paper and a pencil or a pen. But a computer is fine too. But anyway, I had notebook paper, and I was very much aware that books were about that big, right? And so I started writing. I wanted to write a book, and I started writing it. But notebook paper is 8.5 by 11, so it didn't look right. So I cut the notebook paper, you know, so that it would be roughly this size. And that book, which that book was called, all right, don't judge me. That book was called Invaders on Black Rock Island. They laughed. And here was the premise. Here was the premise. It was a science fiction book. And it was about the Earth being invaded, and these kids take refuge on this place called Black Rock Island. And there's these, but the ending wasn't very good. The ending wasn't very good, because it turns out that we think that the Earth's being invaded, but it's actually 2 other planets that are fighting, and we're just in the middle, getting kind of occasional shrapnel, you know, this sort of mishits. And so everything turns out okay. Not the best ending in the world. But that's okay, because I started it, and I wrote it, and I practiced. And just doing it, you get a lot of practice. Have any of you started writing a book? You finished one? Wow, that's fantastic. That is fantastic. Okay, we only have time for a couple more. Well, let's see. Oh, sure, all the way in the...
Yes. Have to speak really loudly.
On page 16.
Page 16.
On the very, very bottom where it says, Mr. Man looked surprised. You're asking me to vacate my own office. I asked my sister what vacate means, and it means like completely leave.
Uh-huh.
But why did you use vacate and not exit?
Oh, why did I use... A future editor, you are. Why did I use vacate and not exit? You're asking me to exit my own office. I think you just improved the book. I can't unchange it now, but I like that better. I like that better.
Maybe one more question.
One more. Also somebody from the back there. The little girl with the ears, yes. Oh, how old is the cat? The cat is about 7 years old in this life. Because remember, they gotten the cat shortly before their parents were shot into space. So maybe 7.5 years old. Somewhere between 7 and 8 is how old the cat is. Okay? Well, listen, everybody. We want to do the signing, so we're going to call it quits up here, but I'm going to go in the back. And I'm going to be delighted to sign everybody's book. Thank you all so much for coming and for your great question.